Ooh.
But yeah, exactly. Because I finished, like I did a proper job at Intel, like the semiconductor chip manufacturer, for a year, and then went back to uni.
Yeah.
And then the channel did really well the last like 12 months. So lucky enough to be able to dive into it full time, basically.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's good. You should ride that wave and keep it going and see where it goes because if that hits, like it's hitting big, you know?
Exactly, yeah. I think there's so much potential in other esports as well, which is what I'm trying to get into.
Yeah, you should.
Um,
You should.
I just found your
but
Valorant one today.
oh, you found the Valorant one today? Good stuff,
Yeah.
Austin. Good
Listen,
stuff. I haven't
I'm a
talked about it
Valorant
anywhere
expert
because
now.
I want it to be found organically, even though I'm just saying it live on stream. But I was saying, like, because if a load of COD people come over that don't really care about Valorant and they subscribe, then that actually might be bad for the algorithm because then those people aren't converting, or whatever. I don't really, who knows what the algorithm does, but
You should definitely get into Valorant. That's popping right now, bro.
yeah, that's
Like
what I'm trying
Next
to
up
do.
now.
Yeah.
anytime.
I've also eventually got to find a way to like separate myself from the content. It's a few years down the line, but like you always got to think about that if you're a streamer or creator. It's like, well, how can I create something that's bigger than just me so that when I stop doing whatever, then I can still
It can still keep
like
going
own
without you.
something, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not really a problem for today, but
Uh,
I feel like that's
uh
where Breaking Point kind of comes in.
exactly, yeah. That's that's a big part of it, Brandon.
Mm.
What is good stream? Hello, hello, hello. I think we're live. It's looking beautiful, Omar, by the way. Cracking job. I feel like I'm massive on the stream though. I could zoom out a touch. Yeah, there we go. That's as far as I can. That's good. That's good. I was bigger than the rest of the boys. Right, what's your major? So I studied business management at the University of Bath, where I still live until June next year, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do. I may live here for another year. I may try and figure out a way to get to the US, but I might not do that immediately. I don't know. I don't know if it's even possible at the moment. Because a lot of the players have a trouble and they've got an actual organization behind them, like who should be able to figure it out. Damn, the subs are coming in thick and fast. What are you saying, Omar?
Oh, no, I didn't say anything.
Oh, I said Omar, sorry. He's our producer. Okay, yeah. Awesome. I mean, we can just crack on. I'm down. Episode 38. Special guest from Seattle Surge. If Lion does wake up, which I doubt, but if he does, he could join and he could just chat in the background. Time zones are mad weird right now between. I don't know if they get better or worse for us. I think they might get slightly better with the like daylight savings because it's like a 2 hour swing because they're in summer. No, I don't know. They were in winter. Now it's going into their spring or whatever.
Yeah.
It's chalked. It's chalked. We don't worry about it. It's fine. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine. No, we'll crack on. Episode 38. Lovely stuff. Oh, I do have the chug jug. It's just about full enough to do an episode, I think. So. If anyone wants to, whatever these points are, you can redeem or something. Anyway, we'll crack on. Episode 38. 3, 2. I can't do it already. Oh my god. All right, I'll do it after the intro. 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and welcome to episode 38 of the Breaking Point podcast. We are live on Twitch. Another special episode for you all. A couple of weeks ago, we did one with the Los Angeles Grillers guys. Seaman Gunless came on, had a cracking episode there. Another one for you today. As I say, live on Twitch. If you guys are watching after the fact on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we really do appreciate you. But today, we're joined by some of the fellas on Seattle Surge. Austin, EasyMac, and Neil is here with me as well. We've got Accuracy, we've got Brandon, that being Novus, their new general manager at Seattle Surge. Lots to dive into today. Accuracy, how are you doing? I see you've got the nice little setup. I see you've been chucking some content up on the timeline a little bit. It's good to see. The content's been flowing this off season, I think.
Yeah, I'm doing good. You know, off-season time, I thought it was about the time for me to get into some more content and, take advantage of the Twitter following and all that and put myself out there a little more compared to previously. Because before I would just kind of lay low off the grid, focus on competing and playing and not really interact too much. But I thought that it'd be better for me just moving forward to, interact more and put myself out there a little more.
Good stuff. Brandon, how's it going? I like the
What's
setup.
up, Rab?
I
Thank you.
commented on the bookshelf. I've never seen your setup before. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of a new setup for me, anyways. But
Good
no,
stuff.
things are good. Things are good. Off season has been a lot of fun and exciting. I'm sure Lamar can tell you about that as well. But finally, things are kind of settling down. We got the roster. Now we're just figuring out getting everyone into the same spot, basically.
Yeah, off season
Absolutely.
was very, very interesting.
Interesting. Stressful, would you say?
Honestly, it wasn't too stressful for the way everything that we had planned. But it was just an interesting time seeing how everything broke down and catching everyone's like angles and what was going on and just all that stuff. Rostermania is always fun.
Yeah.
We know about
Thinking
that
back to
one.
like other years too, I feel like this is one of the more interesting roster manias. A lot of change ups and different teams forming and coming up. So
Austin, how are you doing? Obviously, Rostermania for you and the FaZe guys has been a little more interesting, a little less interesting. But how
Yeah, the
you faring?
Rostermania was so
Pretty
hard.
boring.
wait, have you guys announced yet?
I
That's
mean,
actually
we're
a good
waiting.
point. Are you actually officially? Because I haven't seen an official tweet
Maybe there's
that
something brewing.
confirms
I
the
don't know.
tweet. It
I
could
think
be.
I think everyone, the players are all good. I think all the coaches are still like waiting to resign, but I mean, I'm pretty sure like we're not doing anything over here. It's pretty much
I'm gonna
chilling.
drop all of you
So
guys after the tragic season. Crowder was underperforming. They gotta get him out of there.
yeah, it's been a nice easy off season. That's like 3 years in a row for me now. I'll take it.
Must be nice.
Yeah, we
I
take those.
love the chaos of the offseason, though. I'm not gonna lie, it's very entertaining. Just being in the mix, like in the trenches, 1,900 phone calls a day. This guy, you're trying to see who this guy's finessing and that guy's finessing and who's he lying to and this and that, and it's just playing the whole game is very entertaining.
It's mad what happens like from kind of the more public facing side as well, because obviously there's so much going on behind the scenes, but you kind of get to see snippets and just trying to figure out like what does this tweet mean? Does this tweet mean anything? Is there like
Yeah.
some even right now people are doing crazy. I saw something like Iliad put something on his Instagram and there was like a reflection in his glasses of something green and it almost looked like an optic background and people were like, reading into it. I was like, wow, this is just phenomenal content. Like this is peak off season right here. But
The fans
yeah,
go
that's how it
crazy.
goes. I had so much fun. It's kind of good in a way that it's like if everything had got announced straight away in September, then like the last few weeks would have been super dull. But things have been dragging on, which is kind of good and bad. But
It was
there's
funny, like the
yeah,
first
God
week.
awesome.
The first week, like everyone was like, "Oh, it's so boring," and I was like, "God damn! If they only knew what was happening on the other side, it was
Bro,
like chaos." And everyone's like, "This is
literal
the most
chaos.
boring week ever."
Bro, like
Yeah.
things were changing like this, like every 2 seconds some crazy shit was just happening. Like over you go to lunch, okay, I'm off my phone for 30 minutes. I'm just gonna have lunch real quick. You come back, what the fuck happened? Like you literally everything changed in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I think we'll crack on. The first thing you guys already kind of hinted at it, but is what's the situation for you where you guys are planning to get based this year? Because of course, I'm sure that's a point of, well, at least maybe not contention, but a point that's obviously important with the league and the practice the way it is right now. Just because I think last year, like Seattle had some, I forget exactly who was in Atlanta, but like Pristini had his internet issues. I don't know if Gunless was out there as well or exactly what went on there,
Looney.
but there was some problems last year because, oh yeah, maybe it was Looney. Yeah, there was a couple of guys in Atlanta, a couple of guys in Texas, and wasn't ideal, right? So is the plan for you guys to head to Texas and make that work? As seems to be where the best practice is.
Yeah, that's basically what things are looking like right now. I think the plan is to stray away from like this spread out kind of team structure across the states or North America. Like there's a immense value in having your team like all together in one spot. You can, interact with your teammates next to you, build some of that chemistry. I don't know, it just creates a whole new like team environment that you can't really get like if you're just on a Discord call or a TeamSpeak call, right? Then the other point of contention that like can't really like say for certain, but is like where are we going to be located? I know a lot of teams are kind of moving back to their home markets. For us, that would be Seattle, although Seattle is basically like in like the corner of the states and it's kind of like disconnected from a lot of the other teams and the locations of where those teams would be. And Austin, you probably know this well. Lamar, you know this well. Like the server situation behind the scenes isn't exactly the most robust yet. So right now, I think we're leaning towards Dallas. All signs are pointing towards Dallas, but we'll have to see over the next couple of weeks.
Certainly, yeah. Do you guys have many issues with that, Austin, or like? Because I mean, you're based out of Atlanta, which is like it's not Texas, but having the guys in the same place. Because to me, it seems to make way more sense that if you can be in the same room with the coaches, looking at the same VOD, discussing the same ideas, like that's got to be infinitely more valuable than being separated around. You'd have thought, like, and I guess there's ways around it, but in person just seems to be the way to go if you can.
Yeah, we only had the players in Atlanta. So like the players would like practice like 2 days before the matches at the facility. But we like the servers are so weird. So like the one for like they randomly got like a Chicago one that was really good for us, but like the Ohio one is what we'd play Toronto on. That one was like for both of us it was like okay. And then like the St. Louis one was really weird. And then whenever you played like a West Coast team, it was like Denver. So like no matter where you are, you're always gonna have your issues with at least one of the teams. I think this year there should be like 10 teams, 9 teams in Texas. So hopefully like the servers aren't as big of of an issue.
It's
Yeah,
just on
that's
land, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that we're like trying to recreate, right? Like we'll probably get to this at some point in the podcast, but we have a very young team, except for one person who's on the call with us right now. Like, and those guys, like bringing them into the scene, we want them to get the most, like the best kind of practice, basically, that is representative of how competition is actually going to be. So, where better place to do that other than Dallas? So, kind of the thought process there as well.
And it's just completely different having your whole team around you when, like, let's say you're going over VOD or you're talking about a play. If everyone's at home, yeah, you expect them to bring their A game, most attention, whatever it is. But reality is everyone's at home on their setup with 9 monitors. They have Twitter up, they have YouTube up, they have some other thing up. They could be a little checked out. They're on their phone texting their girl, whatever it is. But if you're in person and I'm talking about something, like I'm looking you in the eye, and if you're not looking back at me in the eye to comprehend what I'm saying, like there's gonna be a an issue. You can't like slack off like right there in front of people. But if you're in your own room, you can like be listening, but you're scrolling Twitter at the same time or a little bit checked out.
Also,
100%.
like
You can't gauge attention, It's like
Yeah.
even if they say like yeah, but it's like do they actually listen? You can tell if you're there and you look them in the
Yeah,
eyes,
yeah, exactly. And that's one of the biggest things I think that's an advantage of being in person is when someone is giving their attention or not, and you can make sure they give it.
You have any thoughts on that, Brandon? Or
I was gonna say, like, the body language aspect of it is important too. Like, if you're just listening to like a voice, you can hear what they're saying, but you don't necessarily know, like, what they're like. Are they being sarcastic, or are they really digesting what you're saying, or are they just saying yeah to like move on to the next topic, right? But if you're there in person with them, you can see how they're reacting. You can see like what the rest of their body is saying. So I don't know. It just overall better for the team, better for practice, better leading into competition. If there's any like bullshit that's happened or you had like a bad day of practice, you can talk it out, hash it out right there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to just getting everyone in the same spot and working towards our common goal.
Yeah,
good
it's way easier to have
stuff.
a conversation when you're in like one place too. Like way more like back and forth compared to like there's one person talking and just praying everyone's listening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I fully agree.
So a lot of people listening, Brandon, probably don't really know who you are, where you've come from, what
Yeah.
the background is, how it went down the last season or so. Because I was kind of surprised when it was announced you were Surge's general manager, just the way things have gone. Like I think a lot of people would be like, okay, wow, was the plan when you joined Thieves as an analyst, was that going to be the plan? Did you want to do something else at Thieves? Were you thinking about always moving into general management? And like, did you prefer the idea of building rosters and helping on that side rather than doing the analysis? I guess kind of the other question I had would just I remember Octane said recently on, I think it was when they were kind of like gauging your rosters and stuff like this, and he was kind of saying that this Seattle team has kind of been built from like the general manager side with a very statistical mindset, right? Like looking at how players should theoretically work together, and it's going to be an interesting test. He was saying as to whether that's I guess, a valid way to build a team. Obviously, there's always more to it that I'm sure you guys have considered, but I thought that was it was interesting maybe how the kind of what you've done as an analyst last year for LA Thieves and how you're involved with the team and some of the decisions they were making could be applied to this new role as a general manager with, if anything, a lot more pressure on, because over the next couple of years, after Seattle have had a couple of bad seasons, there's pressure to actually build a competitive roster, I'd say, Brandon.
Oh, you're not wrong about that. And there's kind of a lot of questions there. So like, I'll
Sure.
kind of start from the beginning of like, who am I? I'm kind of one of the members of the community that flies kind of under the radar, I'd say, not really like in the public limelight a whole lot. It's also sort of the nature of the analyst role. They don't really get, a lot of the recognition. Perhaps rightfully so. It's more of a supporting role, providing, data, insights, recommendations that kind of go through the coach to the players, etc. So for like me, I started 2 years ago with Paris Legion. In the first year, we had, an up and down season. There was some very high moments and some very low moments. And then went into LA Thieves last year. And I wouldn't say I ever had like a vision for like, oh, I definitely want to be general manager. It's more like kind of see where it goes. I can see the potential like pathways of, maybe it goes towards coaching, maybe it goes towards a general manager spot, maybe it goes towards, a league statistical spot. There's a lot of different pathways. But quickly, I think I realized that I had I don't want to toot my own horn, but like there was a knack for scouting. So identifying players with certain talents early on, and then I'd watch them get picked up by other teams. And I'd think to myself, man, if I had the means to go out and get that player, that could have done what that player did for, X team, for example, like Mack or Hydra. So I kept seeing these moments, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I would love to take that and actually apply it to my own team. And it's tough to kind of be like, oh, I'm going to be a general manager. There's only 12 teams, and not all 12 general manager spots are always open, right? So kind of have to evaluate each opportunity when they come up. So when I was at LA Thieves, like the whole mindset, the whole goal was to stay and continue working as their analyst and kind of progress and develop in that under that organization. But when I heard that the opportunity could potentially be available at Seattle Surge to be their GM, it kind of was a no-brainer. I did have some internal conflicts and discussions of, well, if I do this versus that, like what's better, but it ended up being jumping over to Seattle. So on to your next question about kind of the statistical side and the roster design. I would say, let's not talk about the statistical part first. I would say like, it was quite collaborative between myself and Sam Phoenix, and we both immediately agreed on bringing Lamar Accuracy on actually very early on with the way that we wanted to build this roster out, which was sort of looking at young talent, young explosive talent, and we were like, well, we need the right like leader, the right person to kind of bring all this together, to be that role model that players looked up to be like that second voice in sort of like some of the coaching conversations. So Lamar to me is like a no-brainer, and I'm not sure there's anyone better than Lamar at working with young kids. Like look at what he's done with TK back in the day. You can look at any of the rosters he's been on. He's been with young talent, and Mack last year or 2 years ago. You could say Standy last year as well. So he's been one of the few guys that's consistently around young talent and knows how to work with those guys. So like I said, to me, it was a no-brainer to bring Lamar on, and combining our three heads and each of like our own like called like expertises. So mine being like the statistical background. This is the result of it is the Seattle Surge roster that you see right now. Is what I'd say.
That's really cool to hear. Interesting question from Joel comes through in the chat. If you can answer it, Novus, is it true you wanted to sign Sib and Hydra on the academy for Paris back in the day?
Yes. The initial academy lineup was Sib, Hydra, and Mack, and then plus the two subs that we had, which was Brezian and Phantoms. And there's a couple different renditions of that, but that was the idea. And then New York went out and got Mack. So that's what I mean. Like the scouting
Thank
ideas
God you
were
guys
there.
didn't get Mack.
Look, to be fair, like would we have been able to compete with the offer? I don't really know. Year one Paris was very different than what Paris looks like right now, but Yeah, the landscape could have been very different if that went through, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Mack's had a pretty crazy trend. Of course, Accuracy, you played with Mack during that Modern Warfare season. Yeah, that was great to hear, Brandon. I think it'd be great to hear kind of how things went from your perspective, Accuracy, because of course things kind of strange for you right during Cold War, like a few highlight moments, but then after like the stage 3 major, getting benched, the team starts to get better and have great results towards the end of the title. Like, were you thinking about like what was your expectations of actually getting a spot coming into this year? Because for a lot of main assault rifles, it's really difficult, right? The likes of Methods got benched after stage 1 and is, finding himself in a difficult spot. Many are in that position, really. Even guys that have been killing it in challenges and stuff for many a year. Like Gravity is just so tough when there's only 12 spots in the league. So there's kind of that angle of it, and then of course, how do things actually go in terms of your discussions? You said it was pretty chaotic this off season. You said maybe it wasn't as stressful as it could have been, right? Because maybe the offer and the discussions with Seattle came relatively early on. But it'd just be great to hear how the last few months have really gone for you.
So for me, I was definitely kind of worried when I got benched. I didn't want I didn't want my reputation to basically be ruined off my performance during stage 3 because stage 1 and 2, I think I played great, and stage 3 I played abysmally. But in this scene, like you're only good as your last at bat, and the last thing people saw was stage 3, me getting choke slam, hork slammed on my neck. So
In
I,
Ramadan, though, right? Was
huh?
that like with the Ramadan discussion? Was
Yeah,
that
yeah,
around?
yeah. That was it. It
Yeah,
was Ramadan started right when stage 3 started and ended
yeah.
right when stage 3 ended. But either way, like it doesn't matter. I'm a competitor. People play like no one cares about your excuses. They care about the results. Period. Like yeah, these things could be a factor, but no one cares. You know. So I was definitely worried coming into it, but I knew that like amongst maybe not amongst the fans and the supporters I had a good reputation, but amongst the community of like pros, management, etc., that they still believed in me. I still had a good reputation and people knew I was still a good player. So I was fairly confident that I would get one more opportunity for sure coming into this season. And then the Seattle talks began very early. So I kind of was at ease going through it the whole time because I knew like I already have an org that's very, very heavily interested in me, and I can, be confident and be a little stress free, and just focus on that,
That makes perfect sense. I know that Austin, you've talked very highly of Accuracy a number of times on the podcast this season and what he brings to organizations and like a few better leaders in the scene. I don't know if you had a few words on Austin.
Yeah, I felt like you guys got the short end of the stick. Like I think the first 2 stages, I think you guys had a winning record in groups, but with
Yeah,
like the way the tiebreakers went, you got sent to losers, and it was like,
that's what
I
happened.
don't know. Yeah, I feel like you guys got a lot of unjustified like hate at the beginning of the year when like one game goes a different way and you're a little bit better. I guess like my question is I asked like Pierce and Steam about this, but like what like off season did you find was like harder? Was it like the CWL era with like World War II and Black Ops 4, or was it like this is your third like Rostermania for like the CDL? Like which one did you think was like more like I guess harder to build a team and like more stressful?
So this is gonna sound crazy, but every single off season, the only off season that I didn't have a team right away was World War II to Black Ops 4, because we were just waiting for the 100 Thieves situation for them to decide. So I waited like a month, but every single off season since then, I've kind of been a lock very early coming into it. Like coming in from Black Ops 4 to MW, I was the first player signed in the whole CDL. New York picked me up like the first day they could. I was the first player signed, done, and built the team. And then coming into the Minnesota year, like me and Attach already knew we were gonna be leaving New York, and we knew we wanted to go there. And it was just like, okay, boom, done right away, like no headaches. And then this one was the one I guess that took the longest to get done. But like I said before, the Seattle talk started very early, so I knew I was like in the door.
That's pretty awesome, honestly. It's
And
pretty
yeah,
lucky to
people
have
wouldn't
3 straight
expect that.
years like that.
Yeah, yeah, people wouldn't expect that. They'd be like, "Oh, actually, that guy's shit. Haha, how's he getting on a team?" But the reality is, management, players, etc. they've been after me very early every single offseason.
Makes sense because usually almost every esport, the first person you usually go for is either like the cracked out like entry fragger that's just like the next upcoming talent or like an IGL. So
Yeah.
going that route, it makes a lot of sense. Like building teams like that.
Absolutely, yeah. It was great what you touched on there about the whole attach situation, because I kind of wanted to touch on that next in the way that went, because often there's duos that are around for quite a while in Call of Duty. Yourself and Attach, of course, teamed for a fair period of time. It was a bit of a surprise, I think, to a lot of people to see him follow you to Minnesota Rokkr, or maybe it wasn't follow you, but whatever the situation went down as a kind of a package to Rokkr, as opposed to him staying on New York, where it seemed like there could have been a spot over there coming back into this title. I don't know if you had any thoughts on like teaming with players for several years, because there's obviously upside in chemistry and familiarity with how they play and what they're going to do on the map and stuff like this, rather than having to build it up with new players. But also, like, is it, do cracks get ironed over if you team with someone for too long? Because it seems like eventually duos, Simp and Abizi, we don't know how long they can last, but the vast majority of duos eventually split up and go their separate ways, as has happened recently. So I don't know if you had any observations on that, because it's kind of an interesting
But yeah, I
question.
get what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Like when you do team with someone for too long, there's a sort of like comfortability that develops, I guess, you know? Um, and you could just like kind of brush things under the rug because you're like, okay, I know this guy, he's reliable in game time, whatever. I'm not gonna like be on his case about this mistake in scrims or whatever it is. Slowly that starts to happen, and then eventually maybe mistakes start developing and whatever it is. Um, so that does happen when you team with people for a long time. But when it comes to the attached situation, like we had we only won one tournament together, but we had a lot of like good runs and like being on the brink of like winning more than just once, you know? And that's just like my best friend too, and he's a reliable shooter. Everyone knows come match time, that boy delivering, you know? So like anytime I could have him on my team, I was always down to keep him on my team and always roll with him because I knew when it came to the big matches, the big plays, anything like that, that he was going to go off for me. And when it came to the New York Minnesota situation, the New York team was kind of falling apart, I guess, at the end of the season, and we knew there's going to be roster changes happening, and basically the question was, okay, are me attach Zuma and Max sticking together? If we're not sticking together, um, I'm out. And if I'm out, Attach is coming with me. Like he wants to leave with me. So the decision was made to, okay, we're just gonna split it up. And I was like, all right, I'm out. They let me go for free. Dylan, told them that he wanted to leave with me. And then, they worked out their sale or whatever it was and kept it moving that way.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Brandon? Like just the way that can work in terms of players? Because of course, Accuracy and Mack play with each other and have that kind of experience. I guess it helps to have some form of chemistry. Like I guess Sib and Mack that are pretty good friends outside of the game as well. So
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
things like that, like I'm sure they help, right? You don't necessarily want to do maybe what you could argue Paris Legion did last year, where it's like, okay, who are the biggest name players that haven't yet been signed at the end of the year that we can get on minimums? Let's just chuck them all in a team and hope it works. Like there's got to be more thought to it, I would imagine.
I think you got to find the balance. Like, if there's a particular talent out there that is undeniable, I think you make it work there. But then there is a lot to be said about like a duo and the chemistry that they can bring, and that's kind of the thought process behind why we have Mac and Sib on this team because of their long chemistry that they have together, and us thinking that we can kind of get the best out of both of those guys by leveraging that relationship that they have. So, I mean, we've seen, over the course of Call of Duty history, like chemistry going from season to season and really working out. But then we also see that, eventually kind of crumbling. Like look at, the infamous OpTic stories of those teams kind of falling apart. I think it's, you know, stuff like that is bound to happen at some point, and it's just about trying to manage it appropriately, maybe from like a leadership standpoint or a coaching management standpoint. But yeah, as long as you're kind of doing your due diligence and where that chemistry at, is it strong? Is it something that you can work with and worth getting for your team? Then I think it's worth going for.
Yeah, having duos that challenge each other to be better, and then having like coaching staffs that know how to like manage that motivation too. Like whether it's gas them up a little bit or like situate fights better so they end more peacefully and in a constructive way. Like that's super important for keeping like duos together and at like a healthy like relationship too.
Yeah,
Fully
yeah,
agree.
definitely.
That's like the biggest thing. I think in COD, most coaches like the best thing they can bring to their team is exactly what you said right there. Mostly like 90% of the coaches are not going to know the game better than their players. There's a few coaches that will do that though, that know like the game and all that. But the rest of them, the biggest thing you can do to help your team is managing personalities, managing arguments, managing egos on the team. That's like number one.
Yeah,
Good
there's
to
different
hear.
ways that go about that too. So it's been nice to see like the transformation a lot of the teams have gone and like realization that like that is actually one of the most important parts because you can have all the talent in the world, but if they don't see the game eye to eye, you got to find a way to develop that, and like that's something that's kind of like been shaped the last like 2-3 years.
100%. I fully agree with it.
It's always interesting to see how things develop. So let's talk about how this roster's been constructed then, because I'd love to go through this kind of stage by stage, at least looking at the individual players. Because just like building a team from a ground up is very, there's a lot more to it than being like, okay, we want to get rid of this guy. Like, we got to find someone to fit the gap, is who's going to work. Going from the ground up, I'm sure there's a lot more that comes into it. So, wanted to talk about Pred, right? So, guess he's going to be the main SMG for the team. It's it's really interesting because he's one of these guys like Hydra, like Afro, that statistically and has absolutely killed it in the APAC region. But I'm sure a lot of players would say, and I think have said, like he's playing against farmers or whatever, right? Like it's can this KD, does it match up to reality, right? When he's playing against better competition, then what's it going to look like? Now, so how much does it come down to stats? How much is that transferable, do you think, Brandon? Or how much of it is like the eye test, right? You look at a guy play, this guy's nasty no matter what he does. And a lot of the times at least when I watch play, when I watch Simp, for example, it's not just the fact that he's beating people across map with the 74U, it's the decisions he makes, it's the route he takes, it's the spawn predictions he makes, and things like this that you can get a good idea of how much a player has on the table. Because you can see a clip that anyone puts on Reddit or anything of them beaming someone and think, damn, this guy's nasty, but like they need a lot more to their gameplay to make it in the highest levels of competition. So that's something that maybe can be judged from, definitely can be judged from their matches if you can watch, a lot of gameplay of them, even in these lesser regions, you could argue, but still some good competition over there.
Yeah, no, definitely. We got to be careful with what we say because I think there might be some Aussies in the chat. um, but I can
didn't mean
kind
to
of talk a
take
bit
that.
about.
He was choke slamming all of them. That's all I gotta say.
No, I can talk a bit about Pred, and I mean Lamar probably has his thoughts or his angle
Yeah,
as
I do.
well. But I mean, I get what everyone is saying. Like those initial reactions of like, oh, Australia, like, do they even know how to play COD over there? Like, if they come over to North America, they're just gonna get shit on, that kind of thing. And I think their concerns are valid, but it's sort of like a bias that I think then people just, automatically chalk that entire region and don't consider anyone from that region as a result of that one thought, which I don't think is very deserved. Um, COVID is sort of to blame for this. Back at the beginning of Modern Warfare, we had the season opener in Minnesota, and there was a big Challengers Open, right? And Renegades, the team that Pred was on, actually, in my opinion, had a chance to basically win the whole thing. Pred's controller broke in the latter rounds. They ended up beating Singularity. I think might have been 3-0, might have been 3-2, one or the other. It was either a blowout or a 3-2. But they beat Singularity, who ended up winning the tournament. So the skill is there. The proof in the pudding is there, and we've seen people from that Singularity team go on to enter the Pro League and Insight. So I think in terms of like that matchup against international competition, the proof is there. And even like the tier 2 and the tier 3 Australian teams, like they placed decently at that tournament. So if we're trying to gauge like where does that skill level translate over, it's not like an entire, catastrophic drop off going into Australia. I think we can argue like, okay, maybe they don't really get to learn the meta the same way because it develops a lot more in other parts of the world, but that's not to say that that player isn't skilled enough to learn the meta. It's just that they're not getting that same kind of practice against North American teams, European teams. But going back to, the Minnesota event, like given where they place, the ability to do that is there. So that kind of, for me, like adjusts against that bias that I was talking about before. And then when you look at, just the raw slaying power of this player, both from a statistical standpoint and from an eye test standpoint of the plays that this player is trying to make, it's very clear to me that this player is worth, worth taking a chance on. And like I said, earlier in this podcast, identifying players like Mack, like Hydra very early on, to me, Pred is on that list. So, there's not much more I can say besides we'll just have to wait and see with this season. And I feel good about, how things are looking. Probably the best way to put it. I'm very excited about bringing Pred onto this team.
So
What do you think, Accuracy? Go on.
for me, I knew like we were in a situation where okay, we're squad wiping, we're building from the ground up, and when you're kind of like that, you're the underdog no matter what. Any matchup we go into, we're gonna be the underdog. When you're in that situation, you have to take these chances. You have to take these calculated risks because if you don't, you're just gonna your floor might be a little higher, but your ceiling is gonna be capped at eighth. No one wants to do that. You want to sit here and compete to, get eighth. You want that chance that if the dice roll hits, you can actually make some noise and be in the competition. So when they brought Pred up to me, I'll be honest, I didn't see much gameplay of him previously or hear too much about him previously. So I was like, yo, send me some VOD, let me watch him play a little bit. They sent me VOD. I was like, okay, this guy clearly can shoot very straight. And then I talked to him one-on-one. And after I talked to him and I saw like how much confidence he had in himself and just everything about him, like his lifestyle, all that stuff, I could tell already that he was a person that wasn't gonna have those like nervous issues and all that type of stuff. And he had an extreme amount of confidence in himself. So that coupled with like his gameplay and like the base talent already there, that he was like putting in not too much work, because I think he was going to school, working and competing and doing really well. I was like, okay, well, if this guy's already this good and he has this much confidence, if he gets the opportunity to just focus on COD full time and with guidance and all this other stuff, like who knows what he could turn into. So he was the first person that I was 100% ready, fully confident, locked in to roll the dice on. Like whether Seattle picked him up or not, I told him, yo, if you get picked up on another team, I'm going with you. Like I'm trying to play with you
Wow.
for sure. So, because I knew with all the
Gas out there.
I knew all the sub players that were available. I was like, he's the best dice roll to hit. If he hits, it's gonna hit big. Everyone else, yeah, we've seen what they can do, whatever it is. But I didn't want that. Like, I didn't want what I already saw. I wanted something new.
Yeah, you said that really well. Like that's the same kind of thought. Like we talked about this at length. Like we didn't want to just kind of exist in the Call of Duty League. We wanted to, attempt to contend, right? And the way to do that is to take calculated risks that you feel strongly about. And this is just one of them. And this is fun fact, but at the beginning of the Cold War season, there was a rumored Paris roster that can't comment if I had any play in it, but it was supposed to be Pred, Hydra, Zed, and Dens. So he's been on radars for a long time, and I'm excited for him to finally get his chance. And it's gonna be a fun season.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go on, Austin.
he's been one of the top players, and he's been splitting this time. So it's like one of those things where once you give him a full-time job, and he'll probably have a little bit of hurdles at the beginning when people start like first like anti-stratting you and like targeting you. Like like one of the things younger players have to deal with, especially like S&D kids once they've come in. But like once he gets his feet under him, like he's actually gonna be one of the best, just plain SMGs in the league. He's gonna be up there, like, really high.
Yeah, his screen just looks good. His screen just looks really good. And when someone's screen looks good and they're getting easy kills, and then you couple that with the talent, like if you can get the most impressive thing to me when I watch people play is how easy the game looks to them. Like when I watch Simp, I'm like, bro, people aren't even shooting at him. Like he's not turning on people. He's just getting free kills. When the game looks easy, that's how you know they're doing the right things.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I think people have seen that a lot, really, because very similar things, of course, have been said about Afro and Hydra, and of course, Afro really only got to see him for like a stage and a bit, but already he was in people's like underrated player type conversations, and he was absolutely killing it at the end of the Guild London, despite few and far between results. He's another player that that's why I'm kind of excited about the London team, and I'm really excited for these guys to get their shot. Because a lot of these guys, if they're confident, they're coming up from the scene, like they're willing to talk shit on Twitter from time to time. Like we love this type of stuff. That's just how it goes.
And the
So,
biggest thing too
sorry, go on.
for Pred that I also wanted to say is like one thing that made me, because you can't teach someone how to be confident and you can't teach someone how to not get nervous. So after I talked to him, I was like, okay, this kid has that dog in him. He has that fight. He's gonna get that 2-piece. We're gonna win a map. He's gonna get up and he's gonna yell at them at the other side of the stage and be confident, not like a little turtle in his shell, like, playing on the stage like this, all scared. Like he's a fighter, you know? So that's something that I really like because that's one of the biggest things that is a worry with new players is that they're going to take some time to get acclimated with the stage and the pressure and the this and the nerves and whatever. And with this, the way the format works, you can't have that. You can't spend the first 2 months you learning how to play on the stage. You need to be able to do that right away.
Yeah, that's a good, especially if like we don't know what the regular, we don't know really anything about the format, but if it's kind of similar, right, and you turn up to LAN and it's a big moment, and here's your
Yeah.
first time playing, good luck, right? Get out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess Sib is someone who's kind of fits a similar mold in a way. We'll talk about him in a second. I first wanted to go to Mack, so seems like he at least current plans might be the second SMG on this team. Of course, Accuracy, you played with Mack during Modern Warfare, had pretty good success towards the end of the title, especially winning that New York event in July or whenever it was. What do you see in Mack that makes you think he'll be a great piece of this roster? Because I know we've talked about it on this podcast before, Austin, kind of saying that like Mack was phenomenal in Modern Warfare with pretty much any gun you pick up, but the MP5 was something else in that title. This game, Mack was on the 74U at the start. Then generally, I think had most of his success this year. At least seemed most comfortable on the Krig. So there are some question marks whether Mack can run the SMG at the level that is going to be required to compete at the very top level. Of course, when you don't know what the meta is going to be, is that a potential risk, or do you think that you can work through it as you have done in the past?
So I can see why people see the risk factor. But for me, my perspective of Mac is extremely skewed. Like when we picked him up, we were second to last in the league and we ended fifth. So that boy was frying. You know what I'm saying? But like the reason why he started using AR and MW was kind of a situation of circumstance, not because we needed to have him on it. Like the way the roles worked and the way the playstyles worked, he was the only one on the team that could run the second M4 when it became that meta, you know? And the M4 also was just not like a normal AR. Like that was a do it all, do whatever you want, barrel stuff people, whatever, you know? So he was nasty with the sub. Before that, his stats were like insane. Then he ran the M4 and he was still insane. And then that kind of like changed people's perspective on him a little bit, saying that, oh, he's an AR player. But the reality is, it's not that he's an AR player. He's just like an aggressive player that if the AR is a do-it-all AR, he could use it. But the Krig is not a do-it-all AR. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think he was as comfortable as he could have been. The Krig is like a traditional assault rifle gun. It's not like a push the hill 2-piece barrel stuff, do all this crazy crack, things. You're pre-aiming, you're slide canceling, you're using cover. So that kind of I think held him back this year, and that he got stuck in that role again because they picked up Hydra after they had Diamond Con. Then they picked up Hydra. Like, yeah, if you have Hydra, you pick this kid to put him on the team, and Mac can flex. You're gonna put Mac on the flex to try to get the best out of Hydra. But I think that if he ran a sub the whole year, it would have been better for him individually. I don't know if their team would have been better or not because I don't know who to flex or whatever. But just individually speaking on him, I think he would have had a better year personally running a sub the whole year than if he ran the Krig because that's just not like his type of gun, you know?
Mac has like expressed to us very early on that like his preference is to run a sub, and ever since like the announcements went out or the rumors went out, I see the community asking like, oh, like who's gonna run second sub? Is it Sib and Mac's gonna be on the flex? Because there's so much like recency knowledge or recency bias to like what just happened in the scene, but people have forgotten how good he was with a sub back in Modern Warfare. And I think like I don't know, was it the Flank Twitter page or someone tweeted out like some highlight clips of Mac from back in the day, and that sort of cleared up some of the confusion there. But yeah, no, Mac, I think people are forgetting how good Mac was with a sub in Modern Warfare. And obviously that's, over about a year ago, but
It's fair. It's fair for them to forget, but he's here to remind you guys again, you know?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, he was really good in Modern Warfare with MP5. It was just at times this year in with I just remember like on like the raid there was a raid control. It seemed like he was trying to do too much with like the SMG and he
Oh
looked like
yeah,
so out of place at times. He would just be like constantly running forward and like giving up
I
his
know what game you're
life.
talking
But
about. I remember.
yeah. And it was just like, damn man, if he just had some patience and like let the game like come to him, he would be like so much better, which is why I liked him on the flex when he had the Creed cuz he was just kind of like it looked like he wasn't thinking, which means like he was just in the game. He was just doing what he wanted to, but he was definitely like in Modern Warfare, he was so good with MP5. I remember the one chow where I think it was Chris who was Simp, he was on the heady on Gunrunner, and Mac just
Yeah,
like
I remember.
turned the corner and just like it's laser. So like he's definitely such a like I think he's a really well-rounded like player like on like anything. So he was a
Look
really nice pickup.
look where like this current Vanguard is kind of trending towards. Like we're seeing a lot of the same movement mechanics as Modern Warfare. You know, we've seen weird spawns that may or may not be um, in the competitive playlists in the future, but it's just reminders of a lot of that Modern Warfare season. So the game feels like it's going to be different, and I think it's going to suit Mac. But obviously we'll have to wait and see, and we'll know in about a month or so.
Well, that's another reason why I like when you guys picking up Lamar so early is because like even if it's not just like MW, like you guys have a good leader who can like tell him to have the patience to like let the game come to him, and it's just like he'll have a full year in the SMG, he'll have a full another full year to like develop as a player. So it's like it was really smart to, and he won't have to do the dirty work either. Like the whole team will be like contributing to it, which is something I don't think he's had the last year maybe, where he thought he had to do more of the dirty work than everyone else. But like I feel like he's gonna be in a really nice place to like thrive with like you guys behind him.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna
this might come
be.
up.
That's the goal. That's the goal is to set him up. Like I don't. It's like this gets me, I guess, under fire with the community and the fans and stuff. But I like to play as AR in that support type position, not trying to be the superstar main AR. Because you could be a superstar main AR and drop 1.3s and lose every game, every single one. But if you drop like a 1.0 or a 1.05 or whatever it is, but you're doing the right supporting cast for the more impactful players, because that's just the fact they are the sub players and stuff are the more impactful players. If you're dropping a lower KD and setting them up, and they're doing well, your chance of winning goes up dramatically compared to if the main AR drops a 1.3.
That's really what we've
Yeah.
seen the last couple of years. I mean, especially Modern Warfare, like that was very evident, right? Where you had Waskin and Octane dropping 1.3s, 1.4s, and getting bodied, right? And it's not necessarily
Yeah,
saying that like they were doing anything wrong. Maybe that was just how the team wanted to operate things. But the most
yeah,
successful rosters in that game, and even in this most recent title, really, like you see that. I mean, I think a lot of teams are probably looking at FaZe and thinking, all right, what's their team composition? Okay, Octane, RC's is dropping a 1.0 every event, and they're absolutely bodying people. So okay, let's try and figure that out, right? Which and let your SMGs be more impactful because you're exactly right. Like the SMG duo is kind of what wins you things as long as the rest of the team is well-rounded surrounding that.
100%. They're just more impactful. It is what it is. The people that are more aggressive, more engagements. Like, bro, if I'm on a team, we could use. It's easier for everyone to talk about, let's say, FaZe, right? Like, if I'm on a team with Simp and BZ, and I could pick who takes more gunfights, me or them. Them. Go take more gunfights.
Yeah,
Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what you want to do. And then on
I'll
this
get
team,
the
it's like,
rotations.
yeah, it's like on this team, it's like, okay, I have 3 young demons on my team. Do I want Dante or Sib to take more gunfights than me? Yes, I want you to go chow as much as possible and get in more engagements. You're most likely to win majority of them. And same thing with everyone else on the team. Like, that's just the way it is. And there is just way more impactful. You look at any stats, any team, when a main AR is dropping 1.4s or 1.3s and the other people are not doing as good, you lose all the time. You drop a 1.0, 1.05, everyone else does a little better than that, dub.
Yeah, there's
Easy dub.
I think there's a couple ways to like set up a team, and like if you have two cracked out subs, like one of your ARs has to take a back seat and like play more supportive, and like that's like a really difficult conversation to have. But when you have an AR who's already willing to accept that role, it makes the whole transition easier. It creates a way better system for the team. So like you don't need to have two cracked out Slayers on the AR as long as one of them knows their role and does it really well, and the other one is that Slayer that likes to take a lot of those gunfights. So you guys definitely have like a really good duo for that like format.
That's exactly the way I did it in World War II. Like, you're the stats guy too. If you wanted to pull it up, I'm pretty sure World War II. Like when I teamed with Kenny, we started playing the first day of the game. I saw his POV. I was like, holy shit, yo, don't ever touch the hill in your life. Like, don't ever touch the hill in your life. And that was the game plan. Like, I would get all the hill time. You never touch the hill. Go get as many gunfights as possible. And by the end of the season, I was #1 in hill time, and he was literally last in hill time, like overall. And I was like, our theory worked. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's funny, yeah. I mean, absolutely. The thing I wanted to touch on as well, just before we talk about Civ, is I guess the chemistry and the way things are going to work with Mac. Because as you were saying with Prayer, like confident guy, like he's going to stand up and yell on the main stage. Mac's a bit more reserved, a bit like quieter and that type of stuff. Like, I guess you guys thought maybe that's I don't know, maybe I'm perceiving it wrong from the outside, or it's just a good compliment to the team as a whole. Because I don't think you necessarily want 4 guys that are like, you know, I don't know. You probably don't want the same personality every single one of your players, right? Like, don't necessarily want every single person getting loud and screaming across the main stage. I just remember the classic of when John would be on a team, for example, and John's
Yeah.
just sitting back and like, popping 4 pieces, and it doesn't matter what happens in the game. He's just sitting there chilling. Same with
Yeah.
Jerd actually on Splice back in the day.
And then
When the rest
Donk
of the
is
guys are
beating
going
on his
mental,
chest.
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you probably don't want everyone doing that, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I didn't look at it at that angle when I was thinking about it with the team. With that was more of like for me on an individual basis with newer players. Like that is something that I can take. It's something I guess tangible that I can look at to gauge what I think their nerves level would be and like and their confidence levels. You know what I'm saying? So Max what in his like sophomore year now of playing or about to be his junior year of competing. So he should be past all that by now. So it's not something I need to worry about. Whether he wants to be reserved, loud, etc., whatever, I'm not using that to gauge him on that anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that was like a big like thought process.
That's
Or
for
thought
new
that came up.
players. For me, it is. For new players, their confidence and all that stuff, that for me, it's a big deal.
I'm almost thinking like some of that will wear off from Pred onto the others or from Sib onto the others. But like thinking about it now, like I think it just creates a good balance of like different kind of levels of, intensity.
Exactly. You need someone who's going to be a little bit calmer, right? Because then, like, comms can become an issue, right? If people are getting too frantic and stuff like this, we've seen. Um, we talked about Sim a little bit. Let's dive right into that then, because this is probably I would say this is the spiciest piece of the roster because it's been a long time coming for Civ to actually get a spot in the league. Like, there's
Yeah.
been a lot of talk about him, right? The last 12, 15, 18 months or so, there was rumors that he was going to get a shot on New York in the middle of the season. That fell through for whatever reason. You guys giving him a shot here in Seattle. Clearly an incredibly talented player. Austin, I know you've talked a lot about Sib, at least in recent few episodes, how Sib is maybe his like on-camera presence is kind of different to how he is behind the scenes when he's actually getting on and grinding and learning how to improve. Seems like a guy that's very dedicated to doing that, but maybe like comes off a little bit differently on I guess on the public facing side. For good or for ill, you could certainly say. So of course, like there's some concern, like will the egos clash? Will things go wrong? Like, what's your plan, I suppose, to kind of deal with any potential issues that might arise? Because of course you've also got Phoenix over there as kind of the head coach for the team, who, as Austin was kind of hinting at, that's kind of the key to keeping everything nicely not boiling over, so that you can actually maximize the amount of talent that this team has at its disposal. I didn't throw it to anyone in particular, but if you want to go, Brandon.
Yeah, I'll go for it. I mean, like, look, I think everyone can kind of agree with the statement that Sid is probably the most talented player in NA Challengers, if not one of the most talented NA Challengers players right now. I think I think he has the potential to be, a top tier flex in the league. If not the top flex in the league, given time, given the right environment, given the right people that believe in him, the right teammates that believe in him, a coach that can bring the best out of him. And like, look, and every time I chat with Sib, I see a person that's just like incredibly grateful for the opportunity and wants to just, show the community, show players, the fans, how good he can actually be. So I see that, and I'm like, I'm happy that we gave him that opportunity, and I'm really excited for him to make his debut with us. It's a long time overdue, and yeah, this is I'm excited for him.
So what I gotta say about Dante is no one's screen looks like his screen. You watch his screen, there's no one that does like that can do what he does on his screen. Like your jaw will drop every time. I guarantee you there's gonna be 50 million clips of him this year from the stream or whatever it is, just doing something absolutely ridiculous. Kid screen looks insane. I noticed that right away off rip. I was a fan of Dante at the beginning of MW. I was like, yo, this kid is different. And then coming into the years and all that stuff, I didn't get an opportunity to pick him up during that year because we didn't need an AR player. And then coming to Minnesota is a different situation. But I knew since literally the first couple weeks of MW, I could go back probably in our Twitter DMs and find it from that time period, telling him like, yo, you're different. You're gonna make the league like for sure. And what do you know? Towards the end, like he just made a name for himself through MW, and coming in, like he's just disgusting. And I know people have questions about his attitude and stuff, which is fair. Like he's a young guy, all that stuff. I was a wild kid when I was young too. I was yelling at the whole world, the whole community, everyone. It was me against the world. That's just how it is when you're young. You have that like type of mentality, but he's gonna grow. I'm familiar with working with these type of attitudes and just young players like this, and I was that player myself, so I know how to like guide him through that and how to like make sure he can change public perception and put on the right image and all of that. But when it comes to gameplay, like there's no one's screen that looks like his screen. End of the day, period.
Yeah.
I think when
Like
you
oh yeah, you go.
Oh, yeah, just quick thought. Like, I think when you think of like the aggressive flex players in the league, it's so few. Like, it's so few, and it's so hard to find a player that plays the flex role and can play it to that level and to that level of aggressiveness. Like, I'm thinking like people like Kenny, people like Cammy, even like Cell has his own like sort of play style that is a little bit different, but um, the list isn't very long, and I think Dante has potential to be on that list as well. So, yeah, go for it, Austin.
Yeah, I always like to say like I don't mean this in a bad way at all. He has like an OBJ like personality where he's like really flashy, but has like the freak talent, and like a lot of people have like the wrong perception of him because they think he's like just a really bad attitude, really like full of himself. But like every time I've talked to him, like literally throughout the last 2 seasons, he's like really down to earth. He like wants to get better. He's like a completely different person when I talk like from what I see to when you talk to him. He's like really down to earth when you talk to him. And like when we saw him at champs, he was like in the back room with like all the coaches every match. He was like really like literally just focusing on it. He was super like he's really smart. He was like breaking down the game. He like knew exactly what he was talking about. So like I think if he's in a good position, like to like grow and like get better with his teammates, then like he's gonna be like one of the best flexes in the game because like he has like the confidence and like the gunplay to be like number one at the flex position. He's like really 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 good, but like he needs to have the right team around him. I think like if he has the right squad around him, he's gonna hit higher than like his ceiling. He's gonna keep going. So I was really excited to see him come to this team. I've been waiting for him to get into the league for 2 years now because he was on our academy team in MW, and then he was our substitute last year. So like I was waiting for like some team to like pick him up, but like I was just really really happy he got picked up this season and goes into like a system that will be really good for him like this next year.
I think
I'll
you
I'll
touched.
take I'll take 0 gunfights a game for him. That's what I know. You know what I'm saying? Like I want him to take as many fights as literally humanly possible on the map, and I'll do whatever it takes to get that because the amount of gunfights that kid can win is just it's astronomical.
I think that's awesome. You made a good point. Like, basically, the key to this team is like managing the personalities and getting everyone on the same page to run the right way, to do the things that like we all agree on as a team. We can figure out the teamwork aspect, and that's where Phoenix comes into play. That's where Lamar comes into play. That's where like the whole team comes together about this topic. And I think if we can figure out that, then that's the sky's the limit kind of thing.
Yeah. And Sam's going to be a big part of that. Like Sam is the right person. He's been around the challenger scene for the longest time. He's worked with Dante in the past. He's worked with Mack in the past, I'm pretty sure, or he's known Mack for a long time. Like he knows how to manage young guys. He's been in the challenger scene for a very long time. So he knows what it's like to work with them. And he's the right guy to, help guide all of this and, lead the troops and just manage the personalities and all of that. So I'm really looking forward to working with him in that department.
Yeah, that's where team culture was like so like undervalued the last 2 years. Like
Yeah.
building that culture so you have something to fall back on, so you have like that like cushion so you don't just drop. And like having a young
Yeah.
team, like that's the most crucial thing to have. I mean, if you look at the league, like our team had that, Toronto had that, Dallas had that. Like every good team has like a system to fall back on, and like that's like the hardest thing to build. But once you get it, you like it just does wonders for your team.
Yeah, and every team is defined by one moment. There's a way every team always goes is you start off, whether it's honeymoon, good or not. Like if the season's going well, this is usually the trajectory of the team. You start off well, you're doing good, you're going uphill, and then boom, there's gonna be a moment where you slump, you go down. That moment where you slump and go down, some teams either come back up and fight for their life and, regain that trajectory, or you just crash and burn and it's absolutely chalked, roster change, whatever, imploded, done. So having that base and that ability to work together, still get through that rough patch, that moment is what defines your team. And, having the personalities and, like you said, the system and just the egos and everything managed properly is very helpful in that moment because it is bound to happen. It happens to every single team, even the best team in the game, whatever it is, you're going to have a moment in the season where you're going to hit that little slump, and that couple weeks, that month, or whatever it is going to define your season.
100%. The season's a roller coaster. It doesn't go all the way up. It's just about
Yeah.
managing your lows and trying to ride your highs for as long as
Yeah,
possible
exactly.
and learning from your mistakes and keeping that going. So, 100%.
It's going to be a fun one for sure. So having said all that and broken down the roster in, I think, a great way, the next question is kind of like, what are your guys' expectations for the team this season? Because going into next year, it's obviously going to be interesting, right? Accuracy being on Minnesota last year and Brandon being on LA Thieves. I'm sure it was, pleasant separation, parting of the ways, I suppose. But at the same time, you always want to get one over on a team that maybe you're team with before. You want to win at the end of the day. But the league is pretty stacked, probably the most stacked the league has ever been. At least the vast majority of these teams being put together, the way they're being built, I think this season is a lot better than maybe we've seen in the past. But also the caliber of player is just pretty astonishing. So that's the question, really. Where do you guys see yourselves being ideally? Because as you say, accuracy, there's going to be some good moments, there's going to be some bad moments. Like, how's it going to be at the end of the year? Of course, the intention is to stay together the entire title and be
Yeah.
a contender. Is it to win? Because a lot of people would say coming into this year, okay, Seattle, like people don't really know where to put you guys in terms of power rankings, which is very understandable because like
Very fair. Fair take. Fair take.
it's tough to determine. So people will probably put you on the lower half of things, and then
Yeah.
it's like, what's the plan by the end of the year? Is it to win a championship? Is it to be a consistent contender? What's the thought process?
So for me, of course, like winning is number one thing. You want to win. The generic answer everyone always gives you is, yeah, we just want to win every event, blah, blah, blah. Like, cool, bro, we get it. You have to say that. But that's what everyone thinks. But the reality is, in this competitive of a league, as long as you're showing up on those Sundays, if you're making it to those Sundays and you're competing in the top four, and anything is possible. So the main goal for me is just be in those matches, because once you wake up on that Sunday and you're in the top four and you're in those matches, you have a chance to win. If you have chances to win at every tournament, that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'd be lying if I said like, we didn't build this team with the idea of trying to win. Like, we didn't build this team to be 8th place. Didn't build this team to be 10th place. Like, we built this team with the idea of putting the best players that we can possibly get together to give us the best chance of winning. How that pans out over the season, I think there's going to be a lot of learnings, ups and downs, but yeah, I think the goal for, like Lamar said, like that's a silly answer. Like the goal is to win at the end of the day. So
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's no, go on, Austin.
No, I was about to say like yeah, I feel like you guys have that dark horse ability where like we don't know where the game is yet, but like you guys have 3 elite players that can play a sub, 3 elite players that can play an AR. You guys have an IGL, like a veteran leader. So like you guys have a lot of the pieces to like. You may not like start off the strongest, but you have a lot of pieces that be at least contenders for like winning. Actually, I think you guys are contenders to win most tournaments out there. You guys will be at the top for a lot of them.
I don't mind being the underdog either. Like I'm happy
I'm
for the
perfectly okay
power
with that.
rankings to put us at like 10th or whatever they want to put us at. Like go for it. Go for it. That'll
Yeah.
just fuel the
And it's
fire.
fair. And it's
Yeah.
fair for them to do that because, like, I see someone in the chat saying, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. This roster seems kind of weak against the top teams. That is a fair take. I'm not even going to roast you for that, even though I should. But it's true because we're taking a couple dice rolls. You haven't seen the results of it yet. You know what I'm saying? You're saying that now because no one knows what Pred's ceiling is. No one knows what Dante's ceiling is. Of course, when you're building an underdog team, you're building an underdog team. What the fuck are you supposed to do? You're not gonna pick someone up that's like, oh yeah, dude, that guy can rival Simp for sure, bro. Like, you're
Yeah,
not gonna know yet until he plays. You know what I'm saying? But you're taking the gamble and seeing if it plays out or not. And that's the goal. Is you rank us low. That's perfectly fine because you don't know what they can do. But once you start playing and then you see what they are actually capable of, that's when it'll be a more justified, ranking, belief, etc.
Low pressure environment too. Gives you time
Yeah,
to actually grow as a unit without the external
exactly.
pressures like getting on you.
Yeah, everyone that plays against us is going to be like, fuck, we can't lose these guys, a bunch of rookies, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But for us, we're like, we just playing the game. Like whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Like, people didn't know who Abizi was. They just thought it was some kid on the World War II rank ladders or whatever until he was Abizi, right? And throwing people at tourneys. That's kind of just the way it goes.
Yeah,
You have to, of course, start from somewhere. And I think your
exactly.
point on like percentage chance to win is like, that's exactly the right way to look at it because you're not going to go into no team is going into any event with a 100% chance to win. Like, I don't know what you can
Exactly.
even cap your chance to win at, but like even FaZe at the peak of their powers were maybe like 65, 70%. I don't know. And even that's might be pushing it.
Yeah,
And even other teams in the past, right? Everyone thought OpTic was just going to watch through the previous World Championships, 2015, 2016.
yeah,
Obviously doesn't happen. So you just got to put yourself in the position because Toronto did that this year at stage 2, where they made the
exactly.
losers bracket run and they were in top 4 position and they ran through all those matches and won the entire thing unexpectedly. Like I remember that weekend I was kind of doing the intro thing for the top 5 plays of the weekend or whatever we were going to be doing, and I recorded it for each of the 4 teams winning. And I was like, do I even bother with Toronto? Like, do I even record this intro with them as a possibility?
Yeah,
Because Toronto weren't at that point even considered very good. Like, because
yeah, yeah,
I'm pretty sure they were like 2 and 3 in the regular stage for stage 2. They just about snuck into the just about snuck in pretty much into the
yeah.
winners bracket maybe, or however it went. Yeah, they must have started in winners the way things went. And well, I was glad I did at the end because they won the whole thing and I was mind blown. But yeah, so it's just
Exactly.
one of
That's what
those
it is. It's
things.
just if you wait, like I said before, like that's the way most competitors think. Everyone that competes in COD knows, like waking up on that Sunday, it's a different world. Like Sunday COD is different. It brings the best out of most people. Sometimes it brings the worst out of some people. But usually, if you're a dog and you're a fighter, it brings the best out of you. And if you can wake up on that Sunday consistently and be in the tournament, your chance to win is there, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying like you guys are unproven, but like if you think about it right now, all the biggest stars in our game, like think about like like Abizi was on
Yeah.
E6 back in World War II. He really had to prove himself there. Envoy was on Midnight, came out of nowhere. No, he went from Midnight to almost winning tournaments on Gen G to on OpTic within less than a year. And then
Yeah.
like you have like there's so many players that just come out of nowhere each year, and so
Gunless,
like
maybe.
yeah.
And our season for Sydney and those guys.
Yeah, for real. And like Neptune this year, the kid was playing Halo literally 10 months ago. So like
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
to like rule out a team because they're unproven, I think it's pretty like naive. But like it's gonna be like an interesting not an experiment, but like an interesting roster to see grow from like day one to like what we see like if there's stages this year, like stage 3. So like you can really gauge the progress you guys have.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Isn't
mean,
this
I'm
true?
excited. I'm excited.
Isn't this a true statement? Everyone's unproven until they're proven, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, that's everyone starts there at some point, and we could pick up someone that's, more known. But I think given the cards that we had at the beginning of the season, we had to make the best out of that hand, and I think we did a pretty good job with that.
Okay, so let me entertain this Khalifa kid in the chat. Said
Oh,
not
he's
too
still going.
dominant, but had potential, just not enough to win. What are you supposed to do when you're making a team out of people that are not proven? Like, yes, I can't. No one can just go pick up Simp to say, "Wow, we're gonna be really good now."
The thing is,
What
like,
do
that's
you do?
exactly the
You have
thing. Like, when
like
Simp
what?
was coming up,
Who are you supposed to pick up to be proven and already on the radar? There's contracts. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you? You have to take the chance on people that are unproven that you think can be at that level. That's just the way it works. That I don't understand if fans realize that you can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna go pick up Cammy, then I'm gonna get this guy from this team, and then yeah, we could do this." You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's not. It's not reality, bro.
that's the thing. Because if
Yeah.
you picked up players that were like quote unquote proven, they'd be the players that have like the ceiling is capped, right? You're capping your ceiling as a roster. As you said earlier, like you might bring the floor up, but you cap the ceiling, and it's like I'd prefer to give myself the range of possibilities to actually become a top contender, which I think you guys have done a good job of. So yeah, and of course, like that's the thing. Even guys like Simp, who people knew Simp was going to be nasty, but even then, there's always the question mark there. Can they do it on LAN? Can they do it on main stage? Can they work in this team properly? Like nobody knows. And if you look back at the likes of Illy and these other players that people would never have thought that a guy like Illy could be a world champion or whatever. Obviously, a lot of people did and saw the potential, but every single time someone gets talked about that maybe has been talked about for a few years but is unproven, that there's always concern, and sometimes the concern is perfectly valid. But you've got to roll the dice, otherwise you're not going to be a contender. And we see that from so many teams in the league, and we see that from your organization the previous couple of seasons. So I'm happy that finally the mindset maybe has changed here.
Yeah. There's only so many like free agents too. Like out of all the free agents, like you're not gonna be the one that gets Envoy every time, right? So like,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you either recycle talent or you take a shot at unproven talent that could be the next ones up. And a lot of the orgs the last 2 years have been, I don't want to say recycling talent, but they've been trying different combinations of proven players. And so like this year we're finally seeing teams take shots at talent and like see what they come up with. And no one's saying you guys are 100% going to be a lock, but like at least you guys had the balls to like actually try that and take a shot on two players, because I think Mack's pretty proven at this point, and you're taking a shot at two players, and who knows, you guys could be a top 4 team this year and like competing every single tournament at a high level. So if
I'll
anything,
take
I
it.
I mean, people should be saying like, I want to go Seattle's route, because at least they're trying. At least they're trying to do something that hasn't been done yet. So
That's
more
the only
power to you
option
guys.
you have as an underdog team. Like if you're an underdog team and building a team without like you're not scoring these S tier free agents or whatever it is, like you don't take the risk, you're just gonna be bottom of the barrel. That's it.
Yeah, it's a recipe for it's a recipe for top 8, top 10, top 12 if you go down that route, because we've
Yeah,
seen that the last few years. And it's just like
exactly.
you were saying with guys like, oh, we can't get Cammy, we can't get Kleenex or whatever. They were in exactly this boat like 2 years ago. Like Cammy was winning tournaments on like units, or like I don't know, they
He was
Yeah.
won
on
some
units in
Chandless
Black Ops
He
thing.
was on
4.
the
Like
Toronto bench. He was on the Toronto bench
he
and
was
then
on the
got on the
bench.
team.
Like
Him,
Kleenex was this Danish kid. Like who even is this guy? Okay, he shot an X once on Arsenal in Black Ops 4. Like what does that mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's the question. And now you're like, okay, well, Cammy and Clinics are top 10 players in the
Disgusting.
game.
Yeah.
bro, all 4
So
of them were on the bench at one point in Modern
Hmm.
Warfare, and in this last year,
yeah,
all
of
4 of them
course.
were on their bench at some point. So it's like you never know who you're gonna get. There could be so many diamonds in the rough.
Exactly.
So as we round this one down, kind of just to kind of finish that off, we did talk this last week or a couple of weeks ago with the LAG guys on kind of how they would do the power rankings right now. You don't necessarily have to rank your own team, but is it as simple as saying phase number 1, ultra number 2? Of course, like a lot of teams are confirmed, some haven't, but we're pretty sure they're going to be New York, OpTic, being a couple of them. Like I guess who your expectations are the biggest contenders for the season? Do you think anything is going to change this year? Are FaZe still going to be as dominant as they were? Or because I think this season it's going to be tough for FaZe to replicate what you've done this year. I think there's going to be other teams certainly competing, but in terms of power rankings, it's kind of I don't know. To me, it's difficult not to say Ultra One Phase Two, but then who you put at 3 and the rest of it is honestly complete chaos, right? I'm sure you guys have confidence in that your team's going to be up there as well. But how do you rank it? Do you rank it on how you expect the teams to be at the end of the year or at the start? There's always these questions about power rankings.
I think it's easy to say like 1-2's Toronto, Atlanta, Atlanta, Toronto, one or two of those. I think for you guys, Austin, it'll be a matter of like kind of managing that high, right? And how do you keep it going? And similarly with Toronto type of thing, I think after that is where it's up for debate. Is it like OpTic Dallas mesh that comes next? Is it New York? Is it what's it called? Thieves, my ex team. I think those guys kind of fill out the next 3 spots. Minnesota's there as well. LAG's there as well. Who am I missing now? And it's the rest of us. Florida, London, etc. that follows DC, depending on what they decide to do, Paris.
So I mean, for me, it's you should put FaZe number 1. Number 2 can be kind of a shakeup if Toronto can keep that same. Like Toronto was really good at this game, I think. Obviously, they're individually talented. All that stuff was great, but they were good at this game because of the way they played the game. They played the game very well. So that's good. That's like I think that was the biggest factor to why they were so good. So if they can learn the game and be on that same, chemistry level and all of that, then they're just going to be just as dangerous. But the power rankings for me is really hard to give, because so many teams changed and there's just so much going on. But the only thing I can say is, FaZe got the number 1 spot. They got that locked in, and then everything in between is just a toss-up.
I think that's fair. Let's talk briefly about Vanguards. I guess Accuracy had some chance to play in the beta or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of talk about it, right? Like expectations here, because time to kill, of course, more Modern Warfare-esque than we saw this past year. There's also some spawn concerns that you were discussing, Brandon, as well. Like, how similar is it going to be to Modern Warfare? Also, potentially massive differences between what is going to go on in competitive and the casual side. And one thing I was kind of thinking as we were talking earlier, Accuracy, was about how World War II was played in that, as you say, the way it was effectively played is, and you guys kind of pioneered that from the start. I'll sit in the hill with the AR, soak up all the time, and the SMGs will just run around and take the gunfights. That hasn't necessarily always been the case, and this title as well. Things always change every year. Whether that becomes the meta again could be, well, it could be very well suited to your team, of course. So I don't know if there's any. It's always tough to read in for a beta, of
So
course. But
for that meta, that truthfully has been the meta almost every year. I think besides this year was the one year that it really wasn't fully the meta. But at World War II, it was 100% the meta. Black Ops 4 was the meta. Your ICR player needed to be in the hill. He's not holding a random cut with ICR. Like, he needs to be in the hill beaming people. Then after that, MW, your AR being in the hill was very good. And then this year was the year that I think it wasn't as good to be in the hill with an AR all the time, and it was better to be in some of those power positions. And like, there's just so many good spots to finesse and use with an AR. So I think that is where it changed a little bit this year. But 3 out of the 4 years, in my opinion, that was like the hard point meta. So we'll see how it plays out this year. It's just interesting because we have to know the spawn system. Right now, from the beta, the spawn system was just not in a good place. But we don't know. Maybe it'll change, or maybe that was just the game modes or whatever it was. So hopefully it's back to normal spawns, and then we could see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Like there's been some rumored like menus that we've seen, right? That's been going around on Twitter. So it looks like there's some interest in like supporting the competitive side. So I'd like to think and like to hope that the spawning system will be appropriate for competitive at least.
I'm not worried with it because if you remember, what was it? Black Ops 4, they changed them mid-year. Modern Warfare, they tried to change them mid-year. Last year, we had a lot of spawn tweaks, so it was a little bit concerning this past beta, but we'll see how that changes going into the actual release.
And I think year by year, the developers are getting more in tune with CDL. Like, so I think that 'cause people need to understand, like, game developers like have already been working on the other games many years before this one that we're playing just came out or whatever it is. So for that cycle to catch up with the relevancy of CDL within Activision and just everything like that is gonna take a little bit. And I think we're hitting that threshold where it's finally catching up, where people are starting their games knowing, okay, CDL is around and we have to support it in some way, whether it's like full support or not, but it's on their mind a little bit. You get what I'm saying? So I think we're finally catching up with that cycle of time period where people are developing the games with that in mind.
I agree on that front for sure. throw some questions in the chat. Anyone watching on Twitch, if you would like to. We couldn't really go an episode accuracy without at least touching on that 1v3. I thought it was impossible not to. I'd just like to hear a little bit about your mindset in those situations, because of course everyone's gonna say how lucky it was and whatever they lined
Oh
up,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like, and
It
obviously
was
there's luck
lucky.
involved, right? Like, there's definitely luck
No, it
involved.
was. It was for sure lucky.
But at the same time, I think there's a lot of players who wouldn't have put themselves in the position to make that play. Like, just knowing that your only chance to win that round was to not let them regen. And you have to make moves like that. And I remember, like, there was a 1v4 you clutched against. Was it Splice back on Ardennes Forest in World War
Yeah,
II?
that was my first grand finals appearance, 1v4.
Yeah, that was tragic for me because I really rooted for the Splice boys, and then you just shut them down like that. It was disaster. But like, just you've always been a player that in those type of situations, like, there's a lot of clutch players to your name, or a lot of clutch plays to your name, and not every player has those kind of accolades. Like, is there something you think about in those situations? Is it just like the ice, right? Like Iceman type stuff?
So for
Go on.
me, it's like, yeah, I feel like I don't get shaken in those moments. That's one thing. Like, I don't want to like toot my own horn or anything, but to me, it's just like, I don't feel the pressure really. I don't feel the magnitude of the moment. You get what I'm saying? And then number two, to make the plays happen, it's like, one, something everyone needs to understand is every clutch, 1v2, 1v3, 1v whatever, has an insane amount of luck attached to it. A lot of luck attached to it. And what makes it so you can clutch is deciphering what decisions you can make, where it's like, okay, if I do this, yeah, I'll probably lose if he's watching it, but if he's not watching this, my chance goes from 5% to 10% or whatever it is. Like, making the decision and making the play that gives you the highest probability, even though you know it's still not in your favor at all, but it gives you the highest chance. So instead of just doing something dumb that you have like 1% chance to win, you make a play where it's like, okay, if this work actually plays out the way I predicted, I have like a 20% chance to get it, you know? And I'm not thinking of it in numbers in the moment, but I'm just thinking of it as like, okay, I just have a higher, if this could play out in my favor more likely than if I just did this, you got to see what happens. And the luck factor is them actually reacting or doing what you anticipated them messing up. You get what I mean? I don't know if I'm spewing like some BS, but I'm hoping I'm getting my message across.
Oh, that makes sense, because they're going to mess up one in every X amount of times, and you got to put yourself in a
Yeah,
position to take advantage of it. It's like every
yeah,
1v4. Like, there's obviously going to be a mistake from their side, but it's like when you're in a 1v4, you kill the first guy, like knowing where to pre-aim to just catch the second guy as he makes the mistake of peeking out.
yeah,
Like, that's
exactly.
what wins you the round.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. So like, it's just for on an individual for me, I just don't feel the pressure, the magnitude of the situation, and then just making those small little decisions like that, and also reading the moment. Like when you're in a 1v4, like you said, that splice one, for example, I killed the first three people. Bance was the last guy. I knew in my head, I'm like, this guy's shaking in his boots right now. His team just
And he
went
was
three
late
dead. Now
that
he's
mid,
in
was
a
he not?
1v1.
Was it middle of
He was
that?
head glitching the car. He was head glitching the car, and I
Okay.
was like, he's nervous. In his
Yeah.
head right now, in his head right now, he's not thinking about the game. He's thinking, what the fuck are you morons doing? How am I in a 1v1 right now? Holy shit, what just happened? So in my head, I'm like, yo, I'm just chowing this guy, and I just chowed him off the car and killed him. So like, you gotta like play into the, you gotta like read the enemy. You know what I'm saying?
They
Create your own
always
luck.
shook when they're about to get 1v4.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
always how it is.
exactly. Because it's human nature, bro. No matter what anyone says, like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about that. Like, bro, if you're in a 1v4 and then 2 seconds later, three of your teammates died and you're in a 1v1 in your head, no matter what anyone says in the back of your mind, you're like, what the fuck were you guys doing? Like, how am I even in this situation? You know what I mean?
100%. Let's chat some viewer questions. We got some good ones. Austin, I saw you pick one out. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So the first one was from 50/50. It would be if you could compare Sib and Pred, the two current players, probably from like this last like season or two, who would you guys compare them to?
Sib, I would probably compare to like Cammy, like that aggressive flex type play style. Um, and then Pred. It's just so generic to say Tyler because Tyler Beats is like the #1 aggressive SMG player, but like that category of players like Kleenex, Abizi, um, that that like that role of
Aggressive,
just
like SMG type
yeah,
player, right?
aggressive SMG player, yeah.
basically same answer for me. Like aggressive flex, Cammy, Ken, something like that. Same for aggressive SMG side of things for Pred.
Yeah, that's I think either like I kind of like when he's using the AR, he reminds me of Kenny. How like Kenny just and to see someone and he's like, I'm channeling that. Like that's kind of how like I like Sib kind of plays, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Kenny Cammy kind of like play style, like the
They
no
take
no
their ego
respect,
chows.
like
Yeah.
yeah,
There's an
the no
immense amount
respect.
of
Like I'm not giving you an
confidence.
inch on the map. Yeah.
Hmm.
Pred though, I like the one because it's so hard to like compare like SMG players because it's either they're like really aggressive or they're more of like the pre-aim like outthinking play style. So it's really
Hmm.
hard to compare those kind of
I will
players.
say though that Pred does have like he knows when to slow down. He knows like if he's being aggressive. He knows when to like change up the pace and kind of mix it up to catch opponents off guard. So he's got that in him as well for sure.
The other question that has been kind of spicy the last few days is this whole like I don't know if you saw Nameless's like top 30 players thing
I saw it.
or any talk about that. Like there's too much really to dive into every single detail of where a player should be and all this stuff like who got left out, who came in or whatever. I don't know if you had any thoughts on like how it should be ranked because there was some talk from Scump that is the second video of today where he was kind of looking at it and saying, well, okay, Nameless has me fourth, but I've got 29 championships, and how much do rings really matter in this conversation? Because you can look at Scump and you can say, well, he's basically carried his team for years, been such a great player for so many years, won a world championship, won all these events, but because he doesn't have 3 world championships like Crim Clay and Karma do, then he gets like put behind in that sense. So I guess there's something to be weighed up there, right? Because obviously world championships are the most important championship and they carry a lot of weight, but how much weight should they carry? You know, like guy like Aches, guy like Apathy, they have 2 rings, and Jacob as well, and wide, understandably and very deservedly so, they're considered very highly. But probably the 2 rings that Apathy has pulls him up quite a lot in terms of overall rankings compared to
Oh,
if he just had
100%.
one. So should that weighting in the fan, I guess in the fans or just real people who think about the scene and commentators on the scene and stuff be changed, or is it fair enough to weight them as highly as they are?
So, in my opinion, I think people overgas the ring thing. I think they matter. Don't get me wrong. I think they matter more than normal tournaments for sure. But right now, it's like normal tournaments are here and they have rings like all the way out here. It should be a little bit closer than what it is, but I do think it should be weighted like a little bit more, you know?
I think it's
Yeah, I
you're
wish they
gonna
broke
run
it
into
down.
no matter what. I feel like you're gonna just run into controversy when you're trying to rank the top 30 players of all time. So whatever methodology you end up picking, whether it's rings, whether it's talent, or whatever, like it's going to result in some kind of controversy. Someone's not going to be happy.
Yeah, I agree.
I wish they broke it down by like tournaments, like because like you would agree that like the Anaheim ones, the Columbus tournaments, like those ones were like such high pressure that like they should be valued more than like the run of the mill like the Birmingham, like the random like one we had like a New
Like a
Orleans one.
UMG DC or something or
Yeah,
whatever it is. Like, yeah, I get it. It's just
no one
like
really breaks that.
it's like it's just the community and even a lot of the players are a part of the reason of the stigma in the community of oh only champs matters. Oh, I don't care, you beat me at that tournament, well I beat you at champs, haha, whatever. Like, bro, everyone's going just as hard at every tournament. Stop acting like you're like only trying harder at champs. Like we played 2 weeks ago at an event, you were going just as hard. You're telling me you're not trying. You know what I'm saying? Like just the accolade and the money, I guess, matters. And but I think the level of competition and all that stuff is and the effort is just as the same. You know what I'm saying? The effort and all that stuff is right there, but it's a world championship. There's more prestige to it, so it should be weighed a little more, just not as much as we currently have it in our community.
I think that's
I
a
would
good
have
place to
Scump in my
end.
top 3 though. I'd have Scump in my top 3 for sure.
I don't know how you don't.
I don't know how
Yeah.
you
Top
can't,
one.
honestly. Yeah,
I would
that's the
have
thing
Crim
because
number 1 for sure, and then Scump would either be 2 or 3 for sure. Like I don't know who I'd put, but just off top, Crim number 1, and then Scump's 2 or 3. I don't know
I feel
which one.
bad that people that didn't get a chance to watch him put up like 1.3s for like
Mm.
5
For like 5
years in a
years,
row.
literally 5 years straight.
Yeah, he got like the MJ fatigue, and then like now players are getting like the LeBron fatigue, where like people put up the consistent numbers for so long, they're just like, well, how hard? Like now it's not impressive. Where like back then, holy, watching that man shoot was different.
Yeah, yeah.
It is also like that still competing thing that gives some weight, because like Karma, I think before Krim and Clay won the world championship in Modern Warfare, Karma was by no means unanimously, but was widely considered, like people obviously like consider him the GOAT or whatever, right? But like people call Big T the GOAT, but it doesn't necessarily have much meaning over time, just because of what Big T was back in the day. But Karma a few years ago was certainly considered number one, at least like very much the conversation was being had. But just because after the retirement during Modern Warfare and then not competing for just 1 year, like just the fact that Krim, Clay, and Scump like have competed for one more year, just like even if they haven't really won much or like anything really, I don't know, it seems to maybe it just adds to the weight of their career somewhat more. Like if I guess if your career is longer, then you have more chance to become at the top. But as soon as
Yeah.
if your career is like this long compared to this long, like that's a lot more impressive, especially in this scene where the average lifespan of a pro player is probably like less than 2 years or something. Not lifespan, but you know what I'm saying? Like existing in the league is probably
Career
less than
span.
2 years. Career span, exactly. Some of these guys like decades, not decades, but you know, Clay's on for a decade. It's very impressive,
He's
and
getting there.
it shows. If there's no more thoughts, we can call it there. The chat's going absolutely wild discussing this.
I
It's
know.
entertaining.
Kid said I was salty. I didn't have a ring. That's why I said what I said. Yeah, the COD community never fails to surprise me. If you have an
I mean, you
opinion on
should have found one
anything,
in 2K, bro.
yeah, we should.
2K
I
World
know,
War
but
II.
like either way, like that's the I remember I tweeting this to Sam, I think, or Clay or something. Like the COD community be jumping on that so hard. They make it like any opinion or thought you have, they make it about yourself. Like it has nothing to do with me. Whether I won, lost, good, bad, XYZ. Like what I'm saying is just what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not. It has nothing to do with me.
I know what you're saying, but that's all how it goes. And
That's just the way
it's
it goes. That's the way it goes.
good
Everyone's so
people
worried
care.
about
That's
everyone
what I
else,
think.
bro.
Comes with the
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
At least we have like fans and people that are interested and care enough to comment on things. That's
Yeah. I mean, it comes with the territory. It's just funny to me.
of course. Well, thank you very much, both for joining us today. Me and Austin, I'm sure, had a cracking time. Hopefully, everyone who watched this had, well, enjoyable time as well. Watch on YouTube or Twitch or the audio platforms. Any final thoughts, Lamar, Brandon, on kind of thoughts to the fans or expectations for the season, and just you know, how you predict things to be like 12 months from now or something? It'd be nice if a world championship ring was in the pocket, but not always so easy.
You know, just the main goal is, like I said before, stay competitive. Hopefully, we make the Seattle fans proud. We could change the stigma that Seattle has, and just prove that our dice roll was very calculated and we read the situation properly, and that just get some more fans on our side, more support, and put in the work to make them happy. Let them know that we did all that we could.
Is exactly what you said. Yeah, just excited to get things going. I think there's a lot of uncertainty around like what we're putting together from the fans, but like all of us here on the Seattle side, fully invested, fully believe in what we've put together, and like to think that give it some time, get everyone on the same page, and really let us reach the potential that we can ultimately reach. So looking forward to a good season.
Fantastic stuff. Well, thanks for joining us again. Thanks all that watched this live and after the fact. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you next time.